meeting of the Township of Morris Board of Adjustment for March 24th, 2025. The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Goldberg.
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Schuster.
Here.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Ms. Simmons.
Here.
Ms. Polara.
Here.
Mr. Woodford.
Here.
Mr. Oler.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
And I, Sonia Santiago, here.
Okay. Now, we have Mr. Kramer at the
Yes,
oath
the
of office.
oath of allegiance for Mr. Kramer. You meet me in the corner here, a little room. You raise your right hand and repeat
Yeah,
after me.
thank you.
I do solemnly
I do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New
and the
Jersey,
Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
and the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of the Board of Adjustment,
of the Board of Adjustment,
regular member,
regular member,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations, welcome back. It's for you.
All right. So next we have a couple of resolutions to be approved. The first being for BA-01-25, Anthony DeVito.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a memorializing resolution with respect to the application filed by Anthony DeVito for property at 145 Lake Valley Road in order to construct a two-story addition to the rear and side of his dwelling, which, and new driveway, which would result in new variances for front yard, side yard, combined side yard, and building coverage. And for the reasons that are set forth in the resolution, the application was conditionally granted with our standard conditions, as well as a condition indicating that the applicant shall relocate the shed to a conforming location. And prior to any construction, the applicant shall apply for and receive a grading permit.
All right. Board members, any questions or comments on the resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg.
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Schuster.
Yes.
Mr. Benoit.
Yes.
Ms. Simmons.
Yes.
And Mr. Woodford.
Yes.
So moved.
And the next resolution, again, a memorializing resolution with respect to the application filed by Kelly and Brandon Carey to apply to the board for permission to modify an existing non-conforming dwelling by constructing a 1.5-story addition to the rear of their dwelling, a portico, a rear deck, all of which required the following variance relief. There was front yard, setback, side yard, combined side yard, building coverage, and of course, an expansion of the non-conforming structure. That property is at 15 Watnog Road. And for the reasons that are set forth in the resolution, that application was conditionally granted with our standard conditions.
All right. Board members, any comments, questions? If not, entertain a motion.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg.
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Schuster.
Yes.
Mr. Benoit.
Yes.
Ms. Simmons.
Yes.
Mr. Woodford.
Yes.
So moved.
All right. Moving on to the public hearings. We're going to not take them in the exact order that they are on the agenda. We're going to do, first is BA-05-25. That's 40 Midland Drive.
Chairman,
Yes,
I'm within the 200-foot
okay,
area, so I'll need to recuse myself.
all right.
Recused.
Ms. Simmons, come on up.
Four.
Do not mess with my chair height. Chairs are adjustable. What?
Chairs are adjustable.
What? Nobody told me.
I sent it to him. I didn't have my laptop. Thank you.
This thing goes straight up behind his house. It goes- Okay.
Anybody have a pet?
We gotta wait, pardon?
Have
It is Morris with a capital M, TWP 1776. I think. That sounds right.
Isn't it over there on the wall?
It work?
Oh, yeah. Morris PWC 1776.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that there was a connection that needed to be made. Apologies, I am not aware of the process.
That's all right. So, oh, yeah, that's the existing one. I wanted to say required. So required 10, 10, 20, 25. It's allowing 15. Should have come down to 50.
Okay. What's the required combined side yard in the RA 15?
I got 14.6.
All right, the chart says 20.
Yeah, and so that should be 30/20, right?
31 side, 20 the other side, total of 50. They got 7-1 and 7-1.
Right, okay.
Want me to read into the record?
Sure.
Are you in?
Are you ready?
You need to proceed with the meeting or that's
We just want to make sure he's ready before we go.
Yeah, I'm in.
All right,
Okay. Good,
go ahead.
okay. Our next application is BA-05-25. Venkataraman Balasubramanian. Did I say that right?
Yes,
This is block 3910, lot 2540 Midland Drive in the RA 15 zone for section C. Applicant proposes the construction of a second-story addition creating a side yard setback of 7.1 feet where 20 feet is required, a combined side yard setback of 14.2 feet where 50 feet is required, and a front yard setback of 24.4 feet where 50 feet is required. Applicant will also seek a variance relief for the expansion of a non-conforming structure.
All right, now who's going to be testifying?
I'll be testifying as the architect and the homeowner will be testifying as well.
Well, then would you both raise your right hands, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And just for the record, would you state your names, please?
It's Venkataraman Balasubramanian.
Tina Vasca, Tiina, V as in Victor, Aska.
Great, thank you.
All right. Who's going to testify first?
I'll go first.
Yeah, sure.
And then you can fill it.
Sure.
All right, very good.
Okay, keep your voice up so everybody in the
I
room.
know, I'm soft-spoken. There we go.
Okay,
Sure, and if you would just describe your professional background and education for the board, please.
A licensed architect, graduated from Cal Poly, worked in New Jersey area for 30 years, primarily in residential, and testified in multiple municipalities and similar variances.
Your license is current in New Jersey?
Correct.
Thank you. That's acceptable.
you may proceed.
Very good. We'll pull up the first, the construction documents there, sheet A1, and we'll start by looking at the survey. Good evening. This is a proposal for 125 square foot addition, a second floor addition over an existing first floor, which would require 3C variances due to the hardships presented by the existing conditions. I'd like to review the request, the existing conditions, the proposal objectives, the considerations for the neighborhood, and the request for variance relief with you. So we'll start with the survey on top of the top right-hand corner of sheet A1 to review the variance request. The property is an RA15 zone, single family. We're seeking the 3 variances for 3 conditions: side yard, combined side yard, front yard, all which is resulting in expansion of non-conforming structure. The existing western right side is 7'1" from property line to dwelling, where by ordinance 95/28, 20 feet is required. And we will maintain that 7.1 with the second floor addition. The existing combined side yard is 14.2 feet, where by ordinance 95/28, 50 feet is required, and we also will maintain that 14.2 feet. Also, the existing structure is 24.4 feet from the front yard property line where 50 feet is required. That will also be maintained. Overall, we're seeking to expand these non-conforming uses and require variances per 24-429A2. So that is the survey. Let's stay with that for a second and look at the existing conditions. The house is 1,500 square feet currently, 2-story, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, built in 1928, and is very similar to the other homes in the area. The lot is narrow, undersized, and sloped from the street up to the rear. The house is modest and actually quite small relative to the small lot area. So the building coverage is only 12.56%, where 20% is allowed. The impervious coverage comes to 14.8%, where 45% would be allowed. However, the minimum required lot width is 100 feet. The property is only 50 feet wide, half of what is required. The minimum required lot area is 15,000 square feet, and we have 9,741 square feet, which is just 65% of the required lot size. Thus, we are seeking variances due to the hardships created by the undersized lot and location of the existing dwelling with respect to the 3 setback requirements. I'm going to draw your attention over to the floor plan just to see what the proposal objectives were and how those laid out. The objective of this project is to add an 8 by 16 second floor addition over an existing sunroom on the right side of the house. So we can see the addition is in the dark line. In the front, we have a second bathroom that's proposed to be attached to bedroom number 2. And then on the back of the addition, we'd like to add a little bit of space to bedroom number 3. The reason for the project is that Venkat and Divya have just moved into 40 Midland. It's their first home. And during the purchase, they discovered that they're expecting a child, and we have 2 weeks to go. So with the anticipated growing family and with grandparents moving in to provide childcare, Venkat and Divya realized that with just one small addition housing a second full bath and additional bedroom space would be enough to provide the additional space for the multi-generational living. So locating this addition over the existing first floor sunroom is a logical location given the layout of the existing second floor. It's next to the bedrooms, 1 and 2 and 4, 1 and 2, and the fact that it minimizes construction costs, it would not require constructing a foundation and it would not require reconstructing a first floor. They don't need a first floor addition. Let's consider other locations. If you look at the elevation just to the bottom, the backyard elevation below the second floor, we can see that there's a kitchen bump out. It's 4 by 14. So we could build over that and cantilever out a little bit to get the 125 square feet. However, when you look back at the second floor plan, you see that that would be right next to the steps and the bathroom. So there'd be no access to the second floor. Also adding a full second floor addition to the right of that kitchen bump out is not logical because we don't need a first floor space at this time. Let's look at the current and proposed street views, and that would be on the Exhibit A that you also received. Those are the colored sheet that has renderings and photographs on it. You can still so there we go. So this is ideal looking at that middle
No.
shot.
So just let me stop you there for a second. We don't have that, right?
I sent Exhibit A last week.
First page only.
Right, so you have the construction documents that are the 2 sheets, and there was an additional Exhibit A sent, which I received an email response to.
But that was sent to me only. It didn't go to the board.
Okay, so we'll get it marked.
All
Yeah,
right,
so just
I
mark
wouldn't
it.
have had the board.
So that's okay. Let's just mark that A1 if you would
Yes.
do that and put today's date on it as well.
Very good.
And then I'll have you describe what that is for the record.
All right, my apologies again for that.
No,
This is
not a problem.
A1. All right. All right, so we'll start with that view that Venkat is showing us. The blue house is their home. And on the far right side a little bit, you can see the yellow sunroom. That's right to the right of it. And what we're proposing to do is add right on top of that. And there we go. I like that view on the right of it because we can see what the view is coming up the road. And that's that yellow sunroom that we currently have. And we're going to build that 125 square foot addition right above that. And if we scroll up a little bit, we can see what the proposed views would be for the front and for the right side view. So from the front, let's scroll up. So from the front, we can see we're just filling out that top right-hand corner. And then to the right image there, we can now see what that image looks like from the street as we just built out that 125 square foot addition over the existing sunroom. So that is the objective. That is what we propose to do. And in doing so, we certainly considered Venkat and Divya's solution, but we also want to be respectful to the neighbors and the intent of the zoning ordinances. So as noted, the located desired for the 125 square foot addition is above the sunroom because it works out for Venkat and Divya, but it's also the least intrusive location for the neighbors. The only other real location would have been, for example, above, let's go here again. If we look back at the existing, like above the entry area or something like that, that certainly would have been more obtrusive and more present in the street. So I also want to discuss the distance between, let's look at these here, scroll down, between the properties, especially the one to the right, which is 42 Midland, since that's the property that will be impacted the most. So we're at 7.1 feet from the property line, and 42 Midland is at about 15 feet. So we have a total of a net about 22 feet between those two buildings there. On the other side, we also have 7.1 feet from our house to the property line, and then the neighbor at 38 Midland, they're at about 11 feet. So that's a little bit closer. That comes in at 18 feet. So this does impact 42 Midland the most. We're very grateful that the neighbor Austin is here tonight in support of the project. And then one last consideration for the neighborhood is the size of the addition. It's certainly proportionate to the home itself and certainly proportionate to the neighborhood. And that brings me to the last topic, which is the request for the variance relief. If we can just go back to the survey, because that's where we're seeing all those setbacks. Yeah, roll up. Thank you. The low building coverage and low impervious coverage will certainly allow for a sizable addition. But unfortunately, because of the existing conditions, it would be possible to add anything onto the house without setback variances. So we are seeking the variances for this project because the property falls under NJSA 4055D 70C1 requirement, whereby strict application of any regulation would result in practical difficulties and hardship when trying to add a small 125 square foot second floor addition due to the undersized lot, the narrowness of the lot, and the location of the existing dwelling within the property. The proposal seeks to be aligned with the effort to provide the design that satisfies the homeowner's needs, and also does so in a manner that does not cause substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the zoning plan and zoning ordinances. With that, we thank the board for the opportunity opportunity to present the request, and thank you for the consideration of this proposed addition. Thank you.
Board members, any questions? This property slopes steeply up the back, so it's basically impractical to go up the hill without digging well into it.
Well, if we could build over the kitchen bump out, but if we were to do the addition to the side,
But
it
that would be
starts-
going right into the stairwell.
yeah, and all that. Anyway.
So it'd be practically, it would be impossible. Or not be convenient.
Not convenient, and expensive, and
Okay. Members of the public,
I'm
any?
sorry, I just have one
Yeah.
question. On the rendered, for the rendering for the to be completed proposed addition, I noticed there was no chimney. Is the chimney coming down or?
that has come down in the process. There will be a vent, yes.
Oh, so that's,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Any members of the public with any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion.
Oh. Do you need one?
No. Does any member of the public wish to testify regarding this application?
Oh, not here. Oh,
Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. Board members, any comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Perfect example of hardship. They could build straight back, and it would still be a side yard setback because of the existing conditions.
Right.
This is going no further into the setbacks. This is, with regard to setbacks, exactly the same as it is now.
And it's very modest, the improvement.
Yes.
So do I have a motion?
I move that the application be approved with our normal conditions. I have to
There should
show
also be one other condition that we noticed before that on the zone chart, the required conditions, the setbacks aren't correct, so. we're gonna
I
have you-
realized that I had put 10 and it's 20. I realized
Yeah,
that from the
One side
report.
should be 30, another's 20, and then the combined is 50.
So we just,
Oh, so apply the 20 and the 30 to 50.
Right,
Very good.
okay, not 10, 10, 20.
Thank you.
so do I have a second on the motion with that condition?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank
We'll
you.
have a resolution at the next meeting for you, okay?
Good luck. I give it, Mr. Orr.
That's okay.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. No, don't apologize.
Thank you.
Should we go to Wilson or should we go to,
Minor, whatever you call it. He suggested.
okay. Okay. Next, we're going to do BA-03-25, 12 Westminster Place.
Next application is BA. BA 03-25. Avon Wilson, block 5903, lot 4, 12 Westminster Place in the RA 35 zone for section C. Applicant proposes construction of an in-ground pool creating a rear yard setback of 26.5 feet where 50 feet is required.
Okay. You are,
Will you be the only witness?
I will. I apologize. My engineer has the flu apparently today.
Okay,
So,
well, I'm going to ask you to stand and raise your right hand.
you have it. Yep.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And for the record, would you state your name, please?
Evan Shane Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
okay.
Ready?
Tell us what you want to do.
Yeah, I just, we're looking to put an in-ground pool behind our house. We live on just about an acre, but our house is tucked into the back of the property. So we're good on either side for the variance, but to the back fence, we're just over 55 feet. So we would need a 10-foot patio, 16-foot pool, about a 26-foot variance to the back neighbor. That is essentially, we have a lot of impervious area, even with the proposed pool and patio. I think we're still 10% under our impervious need. The drainage really isn't an issue. It all goes around my house. There's, you guys are familiar with my property, but there's a vacant lot of a couple acres just south of me, I believe, where all the water drains off to. So really, aside from this property line behind us, we're within our parameters, so we're just asking for that variance. We already have plans to build trees and put everything around us to help with the absorption, but to block out all the neighbors. And that's pretty much it.
What is this brick dwelling that's shown on the survey?
Yes. All right, so my property, there used to be 5 acres up there, my property owned. That brick dwelling was in a different location previously and was also on the property. 18 years ago, it was subdivided into two properties and sold.
When you say so, which lot did it was subdivided?
It was,
from?
that property used to be somewhere else. That building was moved onto my property by the previous owner.
I can clarify this.
Sure.
There's 3 more houses down going towards Overlook Road. There was a subdivision done about 15 years ago by a builder by the name of Seneca. That brick house was on the property. The former owner of this property bought the house and had it moved and put on this property with a grading permit and a zoning permit. Because that was her that was going to be an accessory structure. She never closed out those permits, which is not an issue right now because it's changed ownership. But it is a little bit over the setback line according to the survey of about 6 inches to a foot, which very well could just be the way the surveyor had measured it. One thing with regard to the variances, he's not only looking for a rear yard variance, I missed in the review. He also needs a combined side yard variance. Because you're going to go by 30 foot to the swimming pool on the right side, 40.4 feet to the brick dwelling on the left side. It's 4.6 feet shy of combined side yard requirements for this zone.
Okay, so without any issue, could we move it 4 feet over?
You can move it over, but then you might be getting closer to the rear line.
Yeah, because the way it's angled.
Yeah, it'd probably get about a foot closer to the rear line. The back fence kind of in the house sits not parallel, so they shift.
Is that that brick structure, is that occupied at all? Or
It's not occupied currently. No.
What's there?
A shell. I'd love to finish it off eventually. I have to deal with it since I came with the property. We have plans to remodel it after this. But it is a beautiful old brick building that is sitting on a very well built foundation and is just waiting for something to happen to it.
Is that allowed in this zone?
Well, it's considered an accessory structure till he fixes it up to the point of turning it into a house.
Right.
At that point, it would be a second primary structure on the property and the variance would be required.
Right, I mean, it could be a pool house.
It could be. I met with Albert a lot when I was trying to buy the house. He was very concerned about it. She didn't close out the permits. It could be knocked down. It could be a pool house. There was a lot of money had to be put into fixing up the house after we bought it. That wasn't expected. We were hoping to be able to redo that. I know it's supposed to be connected to the house. The original plans that she had done 18 years ago, they're supposed to just connect it. So I guess it shouldn't have been an issue. I think if we did that.
Right.
And that is the grand plan is just it's about 4 feet from my garage. Just connect them
Right.
and then build a passageway through would be my grand plan.
She had plans to put a breezeway across the
Yes.
front of the brick house into the garage.
So it'd be a continuation of the single family.
Right.
Correct.
And it never materialized.
Okay, and that would be allowable.
Yes.
That would be allowable.
All right. So what is the landscaping back by where the proposed pool is?
Right now, it's very wooded. There's just trees and dirt.
Okay. Is it level back there or is it slope up?
It's slightly sloped. It's got a slight pitch of a slope and it just comes and goes around my property.
What about the property behind you? Is that,
Behind me is we're at the top of a hill. So all their mitigation should go that way and ours should come down this way.
well, when you say this way, that way, it doesn't.
Well, everything, we're at the very top of a hill, so kind of where the fence is, their water goes down their property that way, ours goes this way.
Okay. So you're almost at the crest of the hill.
We are absolutely at the crest of the hill. The road comes up the crest, so either house on either side of the road, the water mitigates that direction.
Okay.
And then just to the, it's not south, but just the lot in front of me, there is virtually There's nothing, there's 650 feet of wooded area that goes, and all my water goes into that area.
That's Loyola. That's
Right.
the green space around.
Right, right.
It's the green space. So all of my water goes into that area,
Okay.
and there's nothing there.
How many trees are going to have to be removed because of this? We've got to get,
Well,
we've got to
with
get a count
regards to
on
this
this.
happens, I'm taking down a number of trees because my insurance has been canceled twice. I had a tree fall last week. I've had 2 trees fall in the last year. So I'm going to take down, I think regardless, about 5, 6 trees at least that are hanging over my house that have, if you look at all the other houses in my neighborhood, they've been developed after the fact and they've taken down all the trees and they're all well maintained. My house has not been the case with that, and there are trees everywhere that are just unsafe and need to be taken down regardless.
Can this pool be moved over closer to where the, that secondary structure is?
It
And get to
can,
move it further away from the rear yard line?
it's possible, but the more you move it that way, the fence goes crooked. You're not getting any. You're still staying that same distance. You're not going to get any further away.
It does, by the map, it looks like you would be much further away.
I could try. My concern is that it pushes it to a section of the house I don't have a view on for my children.
Mhm.
It's not outside my kitchen window. It's, where we're proposing it is the safest location. There's no, and I understand what you're saying, and we did look at that. I think it's a difference of a matter of few feet if it is anymore, just because the house turns and the property fence goes like that. From its closest point, I think it was 55 feet, and then it, by the other side of the pool, it would be like 58 just because of the angle.
And what kind of landscaping and are you going to put behind the pool between?
Arborvitae, giant arborvitae around. We already have it on one side that they put in when they built the neighbor's house next door. And we'd like to continue that down the other side of the property and just kind of block it all out for the neighbors.
Okay, and so with the arborvitae, when they're initially going in, how tall are they going to be?
I'd like to try to get them 8 feet.
Mhm.
I'd like so it starts off at a point where it's pretty much there and just takes a little bit of time to fill in.
And when they're fully grown, how tall will they be?
Oh God, they get to 50 feet. 30 feet at least.
Okay. And how many are you planning on put back there?
You got to put every 8 feet or so. So there's going to be, it could be close to 20 maybe.
Mhm. Okay. Have you spoken with your neighbor about this project?
I have spoken with my one direct neighbor.
Your one direct neighbor being which direct neighbor?
Well, I guess if you're
Looking at your house, have you talked to the person in the rear?
I have not talked to them, no.
Okay. People to the right?
I have talked to, yes.
All right. And people to the left?
There's nobody to my left.
Nobody to your left? Okay.
No. And I guess there's technically 2 people kind of behind me. One of them just moved in. I don't know who they are.
Okay, so you haven't talked to anybody behind you?
I have not, no.
All right. Board members, any questions? Yes.
Can you describe the fence that is shown on this survey along the rear yard line?
Yes, it's a wooden 6-foot fence that runs the length of the property without any gaps or anything.
Is it yours?
I would venture to say it is not my fence. I'd venture to say it's a couple different people's fences.
Okay, and what are you proposing along this left side yard? The note says pool compliant fence.
The left-hand side would just be whatever the compliant fence would be that is needed there. And actually probably some more arborvitae.
Well, you'll need a fence.
Yeah, I have the fence for sure. I think it's a 4-foot compliant. So I have a 3-foot there. I'm going to take it down and we'll be able to 4-foot.
Okay. Does there need to be any fencing between the 2 dwellings at this point? There's a little gap there, like even if putting a gate in there.
There is, I have that all blocked off already.
How?
I have fencing around the whole thing, 4-foot fencing around it, wired fencing, so you can't get within 4 feet of it.
I'm saying for people going, trying to get in the backyard, if somebody wandered through there.
I can build a permanent structure, sure, absolutely. I mean, right now, I have a fence that wraps a 4 foot, you wouldn't be able to get through, but
Okay.
I could put one easily. Like, I have dogs and stuff that I don't want to get out, so we've got everything locked up. Nobody's getting in my back.
Well, by code, you would have to fence off the,
Absolutely, 100%, yes,
Backyard,
correct,
right.
yes.
Board members, questions?
Are you planning on any lighting or outdoor music or any kind of?
No, I have no plans for anything like that. Probably like in the pool, there would be a light, but
Right.
no, nothing of that nature.
Okay.
Any other board members with questions? Any members of the public with questions? Questions only. Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. Does any member of the public wish to speak about this application? If so, come up to the microphone, state your name, address. Make sure this microphone comes up.
Thank you, Board. Name's Rob Shepard,
Could you spell your last name, please?
Shepard.
Okay, Mr. Shepherd, what do you wish to say?
I'm here on behalf of the homeowners at the back of the property, my parents, and I've got a power of attorney.
Your parent, you have a power of attorney?
Yes.
And your parents' names, please?
Susan Budd, Budd, David Budd.
Okay, what do you wish to say?
If it's all right, I'd like to read a statement that they've each prepared.
Sure.
So happy to provide it for the record.
After you're done testifying, can you give that power of attorney to Mr.
Sure.
Olin, please?
Sure.
When you're done, talk.
Okay. The first is Susan Budd's statement as follows. Our new neighbors, the GM Papa Wilson family, may not realize the importance of privacy in the Westminster Place Overlook Road neighborhood. Privacy is a high priority here. It affects the value of our homes. Staying within the existing setback requirements ensures all families in the area of decent privacy. By its nature, a pool is very noisy. This variance puts a pool outside the existing setback. People would be sitting around the pool on the proposed patio. The patio is about 3 to 4 steps to the Donald Budd fence. This is not the kind of privacy people want when they come to live in our neighborhood. We are not opposed to a pool within the property setbacks. We are opposed to this variance, which puts the pool outside of the setbacks. This variance would decrease our privacy and lower the value of not just our home, but the GM Papa Wilsons as well. It would create a precedent for other requested variances, thereby degrading the value of the entire neighborhood. We believe the town's setback requirements were created for a reason and object strongly to the proposed variance. That's Susan Budd's statement with a couple of notes to follow. One, mention of the arborvitae in the back, the proposal. It's an awfully shady property, so it's
Pardon?
unlikely that the arborvitae that's proposed would also grow there. So that was just for the record. Mr. Budd's statement is as follows. It's a little longer, but thank you for your patience. For Mr. Budd, first, I wish to state for the record that I have no objection to our neighbors at 12 Westminster Place citing a swimming pool entirely within the allowed building envelope of their property. I object, however, to the Board of Adjustment granting any kind of variance, allowing the pool or any part of it to be sited outside of the building envelope. I served for nearly a decade on the Planning Board of Harding Township and have a few questions and comments that I would like to share with the board. First, I am curious to learn why we were not ever informed about the previous application filed by the applicant and denied by the Planning Board on August 30th, 2024. Secondly, I would like to point out that the letter informing us about this hearing was received by us on Thursday, March 20th. This strikes me as a very short notice for such a hearing. I suggest not using the United States Postal Service for such hearing as it has become unreliable in the extreme. Third, because this hearing is before the Planning Board of Adjustment, a variance of some kind has been requested. The previous denial of the applicant makes it clear that the current application does not conform to the rear yard setback regulations. Finally, I must ask if it would be possible for the applicant to site their proposed pool elsewhere on their property so that it conforms to the existing rear and side yard setback regulations, thus rendering a variance unnecessary. The site plan unhelpfully does not delineate the building envelope for the entire lot, but a cursory examination suggests to me that the same sized pool could probably be sited in at least 2 other locations on the property while conforming to the existing ordinance. I would suggest considering the side yard on the southeast corner of the lot. It is my understanding that the building envelope and rear and side yard setback regulations are enacted by the local governing entity to control and guide building activity on a given property in a fair and consistent manner. Granting of variances should generally be minimized and in most instances limited to cases in which a specific hardship has been encountered. Having a private pool is a privilege, not a right, and certainly not a necessity. Consequently, I can see no basis for finding a hardship in this case. I therefore object to the granting of the requested variance, particularly in the event that my conjecture that the pool could be sited elsewhere on the lot without requiring a variance is correct. Thank you.
Mr. Hanson, I have a question. How do you determine what is the front yard, side yard, and rear yard on this property?
The paper street of Westminster is front yard.
Okay. So has that been abandoned or
No, it just hasn't been.
developed?
When the previous owner owned this, she did not want her gravel driveway to be part of a roadway. So we stopped at a cul-de-sac on the right property line.
Okay.
Um,
But that's still a township owned right away.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's still, it could be an active right of way, and it continues down and would actually come out either on Logwood or that may be Overlook. There's still active right of way down there between the 2 houses,
Okay.
just not improved. Like I just mentioned, I was just putting the scale on this. There's nowhere behind the house that the pool could go. Can't put a pool in the front yard.
Right, because they said southeast corner, that's why I was asking.
And Dave, can you comment on whether or not there was some other application before the planning board that didn't make sense to me?
No,
No, I don't recall.
no.
I think she's just referring to how I had to apply and get denied. So I think.
Yeah, there was a zoning submittal back in, it was submitted in on August 24th, wrote the denial letter on September 5th. And Mr. Wilson is now in here with the application.
Okay.
All right, but it's your opinion, Dave, that the pool wouldn't fit any place in the rear yard
No,
without variance relief, is that
it would
right?
still be rear yard variance.
What's the furthest they could get it away from the, approximately?
Maybe 5 feet.
5 feet further in?
If you held it at 26 and a half, maybe at one point, 4 feet,
So it'd be about a little over 30?
just about.
Okay.
But like Mr. Wilson said, it's not where the activity center for the rear of the house is.
Right.
So is that bump out on the back of the kitchen, or is that a family room?
It's a shame because it's just the kitchen. It's the bump out that pushes me back another, and it's just about 15 feet long, and it's just the kitchen. But we've gone through this over and over. We've tried everywhere, and there's nowhere else that really does work. And I do, in respect, understand the need for the privacy, but that's what we're going to do is we're going to make the property private, and we're going to put up trees, and everybody will get a bunch of light there. I've got 13 of them on the property already that are 40 feet tall, and we're going to make it private because that's exactly what we want.
Dave, do you have an opinion if he plants new arborvitae along that rear yard line, would they grow?
I would say so. I would say so. Give them enough space so that they don't start off growing into each other. They could grow to a substantial size.
What about a double row? Would that make sense?
Staggering it?
Yeah.
It appears to me, looking at the directional arrow on the plot plan, southern facing, the sun coming from the south is coming over the house towards the pool. So up towards the corner will be only shaded by the house itself and whatever trees you have. So you're putting shade onto the neighbor, but not, I don't know that that corner is in shade.
In all honesty, I'm not. We have to take out some huge rotted trees that are going to allow more light to come in.
I'm kind of agreeing with you.
Okay, I know. Thank you.
Right. Any other board members with comments? Any members of the public with comments on this application? Or do you want to
Yeah,
testify?
you can do that in a second. I just wanted to get back to your comment about the certified mail being delivered later or whatever. We checked when they were mailed timely. So all the applicant has to do by law is mail them at least 10 days prior to the meeting.
Okay,
He doesn't have to prove you even got it. That's just what the law is.
Okay,
And so
understood.
if it takes a week and you got it 3 days ago, whatever, it's compliant with the law.
Understood.
Board members, any other questions of this witness? Okay. Any other member of the public wish to testify? If so, come on up to the mic.
Does this one work or do I have to?
That one works also.
Okay, good.
We have your name, please.
David Addis,
Address, Dave.
And I'm sorry, spell your last name first.
ADDIS,
Okay, and your address?
82 Overlook Road.
We do comments, is that it?
Well, he was got the power of attorney in his, he was
Yeah,
reading
but
from.
this is comments, so let me swear him, right?
Okay.
First, I'm going to swear you kind
Sure.
of like in backwards fashion. But would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the statements that you gave to this board were the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the statements you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so, so just relative to the comment on the
Maybe you could use the microphone that's on the table then, while that one's, yeah.
So relative to the comment about the trees and the growth of the arborvitaes, our property, which is directly behind we're not the property directly behind the house, that's the Shepherd's, or the Bud's property. When you're looking back, we're to the left. And we have a number of trees on our property that I do think would ultimately impact there's a lot of shade that I think that comes from our property, which would not necessarily be affected by the removal of trees from the Williams property. And I mean, the main reason that I'm here is just because, we are concerned about the privacy aspect too, and that we live in a neighborhood that is intentionally quiet. And we are not, again, opposed to the idea of a pool, just as it gets as close to our property as it is something that we think that certainly should be considered. We happen to be directly behind the brick structure, which I probably should have been to the planning board meeting for that, because your prior owner never did anything with that. But so we are express the same concerns as expressed by the Buds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other member of the public wish to testify? Please come up to the microphone.
You could use that microphone
I
on the
think that one's
stand.
working now, yeah.
Yeah.
Your
Hi.
name?
How are you? James Cassidy, 78 Overlook Road. Your new neighbors behind you guys. So
Could you spell your last name, please?
CASSIDY,
And I'm sorry, your address again was 70?
78 Overlook.
78? Okay.
So we're,
I'm going to swear you in. Would you
Sure.
raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Okay.
So I just want to first say, get a pool. I think it's great, but I would just echo the Bud's comments where they said you can make sure it's safe within the boundaries any way possible. But yeah, I think maintaining the privacy within the neighborhood and the community. We're brand new, so we're your new neighbors, but that definitely was a big draw for us to come into that neighborhood. Just the property lines, everyone has their own privacy within their boundaries. And as long as that maintains, it helps with the property values going down the road. So that's it. Thank you. Good luck.
Any other member of the public wishing to close the public portion? So where are we at now? Board members' comments? Do you have any other witnesses?
No.
Right. Right. So we should have a discussion about conditions if we're going to grant approval on this. As far as buffering, I would like to see actually a plan.
Landscape plan?
A landscape plan. I think it would help the neighbors to know what's going in there, and it's just not left up to, this is what I want to do, I'll get to this later, we want to know.
That's fine. I mean, I'm as concerned as them, if not more. So, we value our property, we live there for a reason as well. So we're happy to do that. That's what we're trying to do.
And I think you should focus on like a double row of arborvitae, not only across the back, but you've heard the few people that are back there to, maybe it has to turn up towards that brick structure a little bit to buffer that corner somehow.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. That big structure, you're getting further down, way past the pool, but I absolutely around the whole entire thing. And
I wasn't trying to crowd the pool area. That's what, but I'm saying, I'm just.
The structure's pretty far off from the pool, but they put in the giant arborvitae when they built that original house next to me, and they put them in, and they put them too close, and they didn't do the double rows. So I've put a couple more in since then, and I spread them out properly. I'm happy to put in the double rows because I don't want to see past it either. So, I don't want.
I mean, it's helpful that you're at the peak of the hill too for that, right?
Yeah, we do the hill, and we're on an acre where we're just kind of tucked in the back. The road ends in my driveway. But the last thing I want is my neighbors to upset with me as well. So I'm happy to do whatever appeases you guys.
Yeah, I think you should, I think we should get a landscape plan, and I think it would be very helpful if you share it with your neighbors prior to the next meeting, so they have a chance to review it, absorb it. If they have questions about it, they can comment intelligently as opposed to like on the fly.
Absolutely. No problem.
That's good for you?
Thank you. That would be helpful also to reconfirm that the location of the pool can only be placed in this location rather than considered other. It sounds like there were some considerations that they might possibly be able to move the pool, but nothing definitive. I didn't hear.
There isn't. There's a variance any which way you want to look at it. This is the best, safest one, and this is where it does work. Anywhere else, I'm trying for a variance for something else. So.
Well, respectfully, I think maybe the variance for in a different part of the property affects the homeowners and the rear property differently. So, so there are other options.
My main concern is the safety of my children.
Right.
And it might be helpful if we had an overhead view when you come back.
Sure.
There's plenty of sites out there where you can grab like Google Earth.
Absolutely.
Right, and just kind of show an overhead of where all these houses are and relation, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Did I miss my window? Can I still ask something or no?
Sort of missed a window.
Okay, that's fine.
I have a question for Mr. Hanson, if that's okay.
Sure.
Mr. Hanson, is there any distance requirements from a pool to the actual structure of the house? Like, for example, I see there's a slate patio back there against that bump out. I mean, is there a requirement?
There is no state requirement. There is no ordinance requirement. What would end up happening here is the building official would get in touch with the pool designer and ask for the design calculations for the pool. to make sure that there's no hydrostatic pressure against the foundation. I've seen them closer.
You've seen them closer.
Yeah.
So conceivably, it could be maybe, I mean, because again, with the setback, even if you gain a couple of feet, pulling it closer towards the house would increase conceivably the privacy for the neighbors. Or,
Yeah, if you took the patio on that side of the pool away, 2.5 feet,
2.5 feet.
that's immeasurable when you're out there.
Okay,
Thank you.
so when can we hear this again? Okay.
I could put it on the April meeting.
Okay.
So do we know, though, the date of that April meeting?
The actual meeting date right
Yeah,
now.
because it's bouncing around a little bit, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Because if it, right now, the April meeting, the normal April meeting is April
28th.
28th, could be moved up to April 21st. We're waiting, that's a planning board night. If the planning board doesn't have anything on the 21st, we may move that meeting up to the 21st, but that impacts notices here.
Right.
So,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, we could announce the 28th, and if it does move to the 21st, you'd have to renotice to the 21st, right?
Is that doing like sending everything out again or?
Yeah. Or I could,
Just, yeah,
I could put it on the 19th of May.
or go to May.
Or go to May. Then give you more time for your landscaping plans and stuff.
Oh, I think we could do it.
Okay, so you realize that if the meeting gets moved up, you'll have to renotice. That would be a condition.
If you want to stay in the April meeting.
If I just sent them out early enough, would it be okay or no?
Well,
We don't have the date yet, right?
if
Right
not,
now
if not, we'd announce it right now. I'm
Right.
just saying.
Right, right now, it's still the 28th. I'm not sure if we even have board members available to do that on the 21st. So there's still a lot of things up in the air. May is the 19th.
May the 19th.
Why would we move our meeting date?
Why are we what?
Why would we move our meeting date?
We were moving it so that it was Dave's last meeting. He's not here the 28th.
Let's make this the last meeting, Chris.
Yeah, like I said, we haven't even had that discussion
Understood.
at this
Thank
level yet to determine.
Yep.
Why don't we just notice you for the 28th? And see where that goes. I'm not sure we even have board members available for that or if that's a real thing. So, right?
All right, yes.
Okay,
But you're not here.
I'm not here,
You're not here.
for sure. I'm not here.
I know.
But this is.
Yes,
So, okay, so that's the date, right?
yes.
April 28th? Okay, so for members of the public, this meeting is being adjourned right now. It will continue on April 28th at 7 PM in this room with no further notices from the applicant. Okay?
Okay.
And at that next meeting, we're expecting that you'll have a landscape plan and an overhead Google Earth shot or something, or more than one that kind of shows us the relationship of the houses. Okay?
And you'll get it to the two neighbors that are here.
Yes.
Okay.
Three. 78, 80, and 82.
3, yes, 78,
All
80.
three of them behind me. Yes.
Right. Okay,
Power of attorney request.
sure. Just bring it over here.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
pass it down. Could you pass that down, please? Thank you.
All right. Does anybody need a break before we go to the next one? Anybody need a break before we go to the next application? Okay. So it'll be April, you made the announcement. So it'll be April 28th.
April 28th, and just for the record, I'm going to mark this limited power of attorney 01 with today's date, which is
24th.
Okay, I'm going to give you that. So
Thank you.
Okay, you're good. We'll see you at the next one. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we go to the main event.
Are you in the meeting? Are you logged in? Are you logged in
But enemies here.
as a public member? Okay.
Sure. Why? Are we doing 5 minutes?
5 minutes? We
Are
can
we
be fine.
doing, no, are we? I'm just asking if we are.
Yeah, nobody said 5 minutes? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll get started on. Roll call again, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Goldberg.
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Schuster.
Here.
Mr. Benoit.
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Woodford.
Here.
Mr. Oler.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
And I, Sonia Santiago, here.
There are two alternates.
Ms. Pulara and Ms. Simmons?
All right. Mr. Brady.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. David Brady of the firm of Brady and Coriel on behalf of Michael Ewing regarding 40 Springbrook. I think we're here tonight to finish up, hopefully. Last time we were here, as I recall, Mr. Urson had 2 witnesses, an appraiser and a tree guy, to put it colloquially, and we presented an appraiser. Questions were asked of those witnesses. I don't think, however, any comments were entertained by the public on the comments of those witnesses. So I think tonight we have that, and then Mr. Urson, and then myself summing up.
Right. So why don't we proceed in that?
Agreed.
You agree?
Yes.
You agree? Okay. So last meeting, we had several witnesses that had testified post comments from the public. So tonight, if any members of the public have questions or comments concerning those witnesses, please come up and present them at this time. After that, we will have closing statements from counsel, for those in opposition, for the applicant, and then board discussion. So does everybody understand what the procedure is tonight? Any questions? So if you have any comments as far as the testimony from the last meeting, please come up to the microphone. Seeing none, hearing none.
So it's limited to the witnesses that we heard. So we had previously opened to the public, right? Everyone had an opportunity to make statements. We heard from 3 additional witnesses since then. There was a tree expert and 2 appraisers. So if you have comments regarding the tree expert or the appraisal testimony, then you're welcome to make those comments. No one?
Yes, come up to the microphone. Your name, please.
Gloria Karsten, Karsten.
Okay, Ms. Karsten, would you
9
raise
Spring
your-
Hill Lane,
Sorry, your address again?
9 Spring Hill Lane. And again,
I'm sorry, hold on. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
correct.
Thank you.
Now, I guess and I should apologize that I don't really recall I don't recall seeing a summary of the statements by the appraisers. So
There
I'm
were
not,
no written summaries. They testified
okay.
here.
And I apologize that my memory is not perfect, as I imagine the memory of all these people in the room is not perfect. But my takeaway from those statements was that there seemed to be an insufficient number of comps that were being included, or relevant comps that were being included in the appraisals by maybe both parties, that there really is no comp for this situation to put a house of 6,900 square feet on a property that's less than half an acre. So there really is no comp that I'm aware of. Have the appraisers been able to find, is my question, any additional and/or more relevant comps that we should be considering at this time?
No, they've testified as to what they had found.
Okay, well, I think that may be an inherent error in our thought process if there's no logical, rational comp to be considered.
There was an appraiser offered by one of the objectors, a appraiser offered by the applicant, and their testimony is part of the record.
And it seemed as if those appraisals did not have complete integrity or thoroughness.
I think both of those appraisers would probably disagree.
Okay, any other comments from the audience on that, or? I thought there was a common sentiment. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we got one more. Oh, no. Okay. Any other members of the public? If not, I'll close the public portion. This one's up first, two chapters.
Okay, Mr. Urson.
So first thing in this application, it's surprised me how quick it moved. So, all right.
I hear that.
That's what happens.
When I was preparing to come and speak to you tonight, I was thinking about the application. And I was pretty surprised, of course, that we started this in 2023, and here we are in 2025. Now, it's also important for the board members to hear and remember, I do not speak for the neighborhood. I don't speak for all the neighborhoods, all the neighbors in the neighborhood. I speak for Maggie Sellers, who lives next door. So some of my comments may not reflect some of the things that the neighbors have raised regarding this application. I think that the board has had a steady diet of people who believe that this house is too big on not a big enough lot and out of character for the neighborhood. And there's been lots of testimony offered regarding the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood, the historical development of the neighborhood, and the houses that exist in the neighborhood now. But that won't be my focus, because I'm going to focus on this application as it impacts Maggie Sellers. I was thinking about why this application got so complicated, right? So we've been here perhaps 5 or 6 meetings and had various amounts of testimony in all of the meetings. And I kept thinking to myself, how did we keep talking about so many different topics? And one of the reasons, obviously, is that the neighborhood is upset about the project, and so that they're really digging into all the details and trying to explain to the board every piece of the application and the rationale for the application and the presentation of the application that bothers them. But my comments tonight are really going to be focused on a much simpler message. And it really came to me in your first application tonight. One of the board members, I think it was Mr. Benoit, I think in the application, it was a house that was going to be expanded on a lot where there was already a variance situation. And the comment was made, they didn't make the side yard variances any worse. And then you proceeded to vote pretty quickly, right? And that struck me. Because you've all been doing this for a while, and nothing I say is going to be legal advice to the board, but you really have a dual role. You have a role to interpret and enforce the zoning regulations and make exceptions where appropriate. But the second part of your dual role is to take your regulations and enforce them in a uniform way. And the uniform way is very important because it guides applicants. When someone wants to come and make an application, they can come and listen to the board. They could watch you on TV. They could see the way you handle applications, and they could see what's important to you as board members and you as a board collectively, and what types of variances you will allow and under what circumstances you will allow variances. But equally, when you're enforcing the regulations, you have a role in protecting the neighbors. Maggie Sellers has owned her house for over 20 years. She's knowledgeable in real estate. She, obviously, you heard her testimony. She believes very deeply in the character of this neighborhood. The idea that these are not maximum houses on every single lot, the idea that it's tree-lined streets, that there's hedgerows between the trees, hedgerows between the lots, and that's been the character of this neighborhood for quite a long time. So when you're protecting the neighborhood, when you're protecting neighbors by enforcing the regulations, you're really focusing on types of uses so that there's not an offensive use close by, noise, size, and how close they come to the neighbors. So when you come to your board meeting and you're here as a member of your board, you're here to hear the testimony, interpret the application, and your analysis is on your existing constraints and, importantly, on the efforts to comply. And again, I'm not giving you the law. Mr. Aller will give you the law. But in each application, you get to the heart of it by analyzing what the applicant is proposing. And in every single case, you ask questions and you make analysis on how much the applicant tried to comply. Why are they here? Why do they need a variance? Why do they need to break one of your rules? And if they're going to break the rule, how much are they breaking the rule? That is the heart of every single application that you do, and invariably, that leads the questioning. For me, in this case, when we're talking about compliance, this case comes down to one witness, and one witness alone. Peter Dorn testified. He was the architect. I know he's well known here. I know him well. I've seen him in lots of other towns. I've worked with him. He testified specifically, and he was proud of it. He designs very large, elaborate houses. That's his specialty. It's what he's known for. And he was very proud to tell you about how he programs a house, about how he comes and looks at the house, and then he listens to the wants of his client, the wish list. And he said that it was a program of design from there. And during his testimony, he went on and on about that quite elaborately. And when I got up, I didn't ask him that many questions, but I asked him some important questions. And one of the questions I asked him is, as part of your program of trying to fulfill your client's wish list, do you start with the town's zoning regulations and the constraints on the lot? And he said no. He starts with the client's wants. And then I asked him a couple times during his testimony, I said, did you ever stop and say to the client, in this case, could we do something different to comply better with the zoning regulations? And, to his credit, very honestly, he said no. He said he didn't see that as his role. He focused on what the client wanted, the wish list. That's how we got here. That's how we got to this 5 or 6 meetings, because the applicant, Mr. Ewing, and I don't mean any disrespect by it, he's entitled to want what he wants and he's entitled to like what he likes. But here you have one existing smaller 2-bay garage. Mr. Ewing wants 4 bays of garage. And there was testimony that there aren't other houses in the neighborhood that have even 3 bays, but Mr. Ewing wants 4 bays. Mr. Ewing wants a very large octagon dining room with really neat hallways that lead in and out of it. It's a neat room, but that's what he wants. He wanted an upgraded office. He wants all the bedrooms to be en suite. He wants an elaborate pool cabana that's not just a space inside and a bathroom, but a sitting area and a kitchen and so a little eating area. So in Mr. Dorn's testimony, he tried to start to justify why this would be relevant to your board. And he started saying things like, well, the rooms were laid out in an awkward manner, and the rooms were less than an ideal size. One of the things that you have to measure is a little bit of the credibility in someone coming to you and asking for these things, because you're trying to analyze whether there's a good justification to violate your zoning code or whether there's a poor reason for violating your zoning code. When Ms. Sellers testified, she testified about selling this house either 2 or 3 times and how quickly it sold and how there were multiple bids and how it had been upgraded and how there had been additions. But Mr. Dorn testified about awkward rooms laid out in an awkward manner and rooms less than an ideal size. I think that the board should be very focused on the credibility of Mr. Dorn's testimony. And I'm going to try not to take up too much time tonight, but I'm going to give you one very easy and very stark example. When we were here for the first night of Mr. Dorn's testimony, he said that the office in this house was completely unusable and it threw the symmetry of the house off completely. It couldn't be saved. It was impossible. It was a non-starter. When you heard the testimony from Ms. Sellers, you got to see the flyer when the house had been sold. And then you got to see that it had built-in radiant heat and built-in woodwork built-ins, and that it was, the pictures show it as a very nice office. And of course, when the applicant came back the next time, they said, oh yeah, all that testimony about how the office was obsolete and it couldn't be used and it ruined the house, forget all that. The office is fine now, right? And when an architect does that, when an architect tells you that it's impossible to keep that office, that it couldn't be part of the house, that it's obsolete, and it ruins the symmetry, and then the next meeting they tell you it's fine, we'll leave it there. I think you have to ask questions about the rationale. When I pushed him, the architect, as to why the house had to have 4 bays of garage, his answer was that that's what Mr. Ewing wanted. And then he also said that it was very important to be able to walk with an inside door from the garage into the house. That's nice, but that's not a rationale. That's not any type of extraordinary circumstance for violating your rules. It's just a want. All of these things are just wants. Mr. Dorn even testified that he had to search for someplace in the house to find a 4th bedroom, and that justified one of the additions. But then you saw the flyer for the house in the past that there were 4 bedrooms. They just weren't all ensuite, right? Want. It's not that you don't have 4 bedrooms, it's that you want 4 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms. And even in the one flyer in the floor plan that you have, it shows that there was a 5th bedroom / office in the basement that was used at some time. So when I pushed Mr. Dorn, and we went back and forth a little bit, and I really pushed him and I said, well, why didn't you ever make any suggestions to make this house more compliant with the zoning? And he said, I give him credit, he's got some backbone. He specifically came out and said, this is a beautiful house and the neighbors will love it and they'll learn to live with it. That's what he said. And he turned around and he smiled at them and he said, it's going to be a palace, a work of art. Mr. Toby, when he testified, called it world-class architecture. And that may be true, but obviously the neighbors weren't too happy with it. And obviously it's not justification for us being here and seeking to create these variances. 4 bays of garages are not necessary, it's a want. The 2nd story above the existing garage is not necessary, it's a want. The pool amenities are not necessary, they're wants. The octagon dining room is not necessary, it's a want. When Ms. Sellers testified, we gave you this book, and I hope you folks still have it and can take a look at it. But what I thought was something so simple was the two photographs that I'm going to just make reference to in this book that we passed out are 02 and then 03. And they're very simple shots. They're backyard shots of this house. And in 02, it's a little bit of a close-up, but it shows you that there's nothing in the back of this house. There's not a tree, there's not a slope, there's not a rock, there's not anything. Any addition you wanted could have certainly pushed into the backyard. 03 shows it even better. 03 shows you that you have almost, I won't say unlimited, I'll say a very substantial amount of room to go straight back in the house, and there's no reason to go any wider towards any of the neighbors. So why invade the side yard even further? And the answer is, I'm sorry, and I'll say this very politely, but I don't believe that the plan here or the applicant has any regard for your code or the neighbors. Mr. Tobia testifies very well. He really can take anything and make the best case out of it. But in his testimony, I really, if you look at his report or you remember his testimony, he says a number of things that I think should be challenged a little bit. He says, hey, this lot is only 100 feet wide, and therefore there's very little building envelope. In fact, I think it's number 6 on page 3 of his report, where he says enforcement of the zoning code would leave virtually no building envelope, exact words. And it's just not correct, because if you look at the way the house could extend into the backyard, there's plenty of building envelope available that would be compliant. Mr. Tobia used a lot of generalizations, and he referenced, I already mentioned one, he referenced that a good reason for to approve this application was to get the world-class architecture, right? And, I understand, he likes the way the house looks, he's making his argument, but then on page 6, he really focuses, on 3 things. Specifically, number 4 of his reasons, he says that there was a need to upgrade and modernize. The board can make its own decisions about that, but we provided in 014, we provided one of the listings with the complete pictures, and you heard that the house sold over market. Mr. Tobia's number 5 reason was that the existing garage was antiquated and non-functioning. And maybe you could make that argument and say, I only have 1.5 garage bays, I really want 2. But 4? You need 4 to fix an antiquated situation, 4 garage bays? And then the one I've already mentioned, number 6, where he says that if you enforce the side yard setbacks, there would be virtually no building envelope. The most important thing that Mr. Tobia said, and it was in response to one of my questions, and I credit him, he's a very credible witness, and I asked him something very specific. I said that when you're encroaching into a side yard, is a lower building or a higher building more of an impact on the neighbors? And exact quote, he said, the lower the building gets, the less impact on the neighbors. So when you look at that, Addition B is a single-story garage that is encroaching towards Maggie Sellers' property already. So it's not just that the applicant is here asking to take that garage and bring it closer to Maggie Sellers' property. It's that it's now going 2 stories with windows facing her property with living space. Each of these encroachments into the side yard, I would ask the board, really don't lose the fact that it's not just 3 or 5 or 7 feet. It's also the entire second story with beautiful panel of windows that now looks out onto Maggie Sellers' property. Addition A is the garage and pool. Addition B is the area over the existing garage. So what should have happened in this application is someone should have separated wants and needs and a coherent, respectful plan. The side yard setback is 20 feet. When this application started, you had the single-story garage 17.78 feet from Maggie Sellers' property. Single-story garage, 17.78 feet. The first application that came to you was to reduce the 17.78 to 14, and in the back for addition A, 5 feet, 20 feet to 5 feet. This is new construction, not 20 feet to 5 feet, single story, 20 feet to 5 feet, 2 stories, towering over a lower property next to it with a full panel of windows in living space. Now, the applicant's going to get up, because Mr. Brady is a very good lawyer, and he's going to say that the applicant has tried to comply with the zoning and that they reduced the encroachment from the 5 feet back to, I think, about 14 feet. But it never should have been 5 feet in the first place. It shows a complete disrespect for the rules and for the neighbors. And if it had been designed right in the first place, we wouldn't have been here 5 or 6 meetings going over this and over this and over this. In closing, I would say this. If you approve this application as is tonight, then you will change the standards for encroaching on a side yard. And the standard will simply be wants and stubbornness, and that's it. If you come here and just keep pounding against the wall with your wants in a stubborn manner, asking for absolutely everything you can get, then that will be the new standard. If you deny it, Mr. Ewing is still going to build this addition. And he should. If that's what he wants, he should. But they will slightly redesign it. They will slightly redesign it so that it moves back no further than the current encroachment and hopefully compliant, and certainly not with a 2-story tower of wall as the encroachment. Maggie Sellers has lived here 21 years. She's a big fan of this neighborhood. She deserves the board's consideration of enforcing the side yard setbacks to protect her home, the value of her home, her privacy, and what she and I think the other neighbors believe is the character of the neighborhood. Thank you very much for all of your time.
Excuse me, no clapping. Mr. Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off by talking about what this application is about. This is about renovating, upgrading, and adding to a house from the 1930s. Not quite 100 years old, but we're getting up there. And this is what people do. People buy old houses to fix them up. They buy them to fix, rearrange, modernize the layout, modernize the mechanicals, change the style, expand it, make it more modern, make it theirs. Happens all the time. I've done it twice for my houses. A house that may have been fine years ago, and maybe not so many years ago, maybe only 10 or 15 years ago. And it may have been fine for the prior owners, and it may have fit the past styles. But the current owners, once they buy it, have a right to change it and to make it into theirs. Has a right to optimize the room layout, optimize the room size, right to accommodate their lifestyle. We're not making a claim here that the property is not sellable as is. Mr. Ewing bought it. Somebody obviously could buy it. But when people buy a piece of property, they like to upgrade it and make it theirs. In fact, if you look at your agenda tonight, I would say that every one of the applications, including the extension, which the last matter on the agenda, was all about buying a house and then upgrading it and modernizing it and making it personal to them. Our original proposal was to widen the existing garage, add a second story, excuse me, construct a dining room behind the existing house, construct a patio with a veranda and a pool, and then a new garage that had a bedroom at the top, 2 bays below, and had pool-related activities, pool equipment and pool activities in the very bottom. And we were going to remove a lean-to sort of structure on the right-hand side, which served as an office, and then construct a new modern architecturally stunning, frankly, office. We heard board comments from the board. We heard comments from the public. We went back and we revised the plans. We removed the office. We didn't say, as Mr. Urson argued, that no, the office is fine now. No, we removed it. We would like to have replaced it. But we heard what people were concerned about, and we decided that all the things that were involved in this project, that was the one perhaps we could live with, or perhaps just modify in the interior, not changing the footprint or the setback. The dining room was changed. It was lessened in size and shifted. New retaining wall design was figured out with 2 walls and with a kind of a wire type fence on the top, not a solid fence, so that it would be more transparent, less noticeable. The rear garage, which Mr. Urson says is a 2-bay garage, was rotated, so the gable was no longer facing the neighbor, so there was less height facing the neighbor, and it really became a 1-bay garage with stacked parking. And in doing that, we were able to pull that back further than the 5 feet, which admittedly was close to the sideline, and we're now back at 14 feet. So we're intruding by 6 feet into that sideline. And most importantly, maybe perhaps Mr. Huff came in with a landscape plan that, as the saying goes, would knock your socks off. All of these uses, all of these structures are permitted in the RA15 zone. It allows a single-family house. It allows garages. It allows pools and patios. So what we're dealing here with are these dimensional bulk, what we call in the land use field, C variances. All of those have been reduced compared to the initial plan. And it's what this board is designed to do, to make adjustments where the board finds that the condition of the property presents a hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for building, or where the purposes of zoning are going to be advanced. We've got really 3 categories of variances tonight. We've got a front yard setback. We've got a side yard setback, although it relates to 2 different buildings, 2 different setback numbers. And then we have the combined side yard setback. Before I talk about each, I just want to kind of set the table and remind you, we're in an RA15 zone. That requires a 15,000 square foot lot. It also requires a front yard setback of 50 feet, side yard setback of 20 feet, and a combined side yard setback, adding up both setbacks on each property, or each side of the property, of 50 feet. Going to this lot as it currently exists, it's oversized at 20,000 square feet. It hits the minimum required in that zone of 100 wide foot lot. But the problem is, or the beginning of our problems are, we've got an existing 100-year-old house that's 67 feet wide. So the house itself has existing nonconformities as side yard setback. It also, because the current side yard setback, I'll call it on the right side, is 15.44 feet, and that is now not changing because we've abandoned that idea of putting in the new office. The left side side yard setback is 17.78, and that is to the existing garage. Both side yards total 33.22. We also have one other setback, which last time I was here I'd forgotten about, frankly, and that is that one corner of the existing garage is 49.89 feet from the street. It's supposed to be 50. So now I want to go and kind of go through these variances one by one. Let's start with what I think is the simplest for the board to address, which is that front yard setback for the existing garage. It says front yard setback that's existing, but we are going from a one-story garage to a two-story garage. So a bulk variance is needed for that additional height. But as I said, where 50 feet is required, we have 49.89 feet. That's a deviation, if my math is correct, of 1 3/8 inches. That's not the definition of a de minimis variance that affects nobody. Frankly, I don't know what is. Secondly, for the existing garage, we need a side yard setback. We're currently at 17.78 feet. We're moving to 14 feet. So that's a 3.7 something increase into the side yard. And we're also adding living space above that. Why are we doing that? Well, you've heard from several witnesses about the non-functioning of this garage. It might have been okay when it was built in the 1930s and when everybody had a different lifestyle and the cars were different. It doesn't work now. You can't fit 2 cars into that comfortably. You have some odd geometry trying to squeeze in along the side of the house. If you look at the back of the house. And then once you're in the house, or excuse me, once you're in the garage, there's no way to access the interior of the house without going back outside and either walking around to the back door or walking to the front door. It's not how modern day Americans, New Jerseyans live and want their garages to be. As I say, people buy old houses, they want to update them. We also are looking to add a second story above that garage. It is an ensuite bedroom, but it's not like we're going to some astronomical number of bedrooms here. We have a quality house, upscale house. We'd like the bedroom to be ensuite, and we're going up. The basis for this, we've got a hardship. The building is sitting there as it is. The garage is sitting there as it is. To make it functional, we need additional space, an additional 3.7 some feet. And we can do that without significantly affecting the neighbor and without significantly affecting the zoning scheme. Total of both side yards with regard to that addition leads us to 29.44. We're currently at 33.22. So we're less than 4 feet additional into that deficient on that total number on both sides. And again, the house is already there. To make that garage work, that's basically what we need to do. It's a type of hardship and practical difficulty. That leaves us with the new garage to address. Again, 20 feet is required. The proposal now is that we set the garage back 14.25 feet. So it's just about 6 inches, or excuse me, 6 feet further into the setback than it is required, because 20 is a setback. So we're about 6 feet too close to the line. Yes, Mr. Urson said we want the garage. Obviously, we wouldn't be here, wouldn't be asking for it, wouldn't have spent money on designing it if we didn't want it. But in terms of where it's placed, it's the logical place, given that you need to access it from the driveway. It doesn't go on the right-hand side of this building. It goes on the left-hand side where the driveway comes down. It goes where there's going to be a parking and turnaround area between the two garages. It's going to be related to the pool. You want it towards the back so that the pool can be accessed to it. You just can't take it and shove it another 6 feet to the right, deeper into the interior of the property. It doesn't function then in terms of access, turnaround, entry to the space. As I said in the beginning, we heard neighbors' concerns about this. We modified that. We rotated that so there was less height on that side. We squeezed it, so now we have an inconvenient but workable stacking inside the garage of the Tobia testified. Mr. Tobia is well respected and very articulate with regard to the planning concerns. We talked about the hardships that I've touched on briefly with the house being where it is. He also spoke about the fact that the proposal advances several purposes of the MLUL as found in 4055D-2. He opined that subsection A, which seeks to have appropriate uses of land, is advanced by this. Subsection C, which provides for adequate light, air, and open space. Subsection D, which is space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses. Subsection I, promoting a desirable visual environment. And M, the efficient use of land. Further, he testified, and I don't think there's anything to refute this, that there's no substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment of the zone plan or the zoning scheme. And I'd like to reiterate something that he pointed out, namely that with regard to these variances, we have an abundant and detailed landscape plan that mitigates some of the impacts that might otherwise be felt. He pointed out that most of the addition will be behind the house. So in terms of impact, visual impact from Springbrook Road, that will not be a factor. He also pointed out, and I think this is important to remember, that 35 feet height is permitted in the zone. Both garages are below that height. One is at 23.49 feet, that's the addition above the existing garage, and the rear garage is at 30 feet. The bulk of the work being done here, I think the board has to remember, is being done in the building envelope. What the board has to concern itself with is those two intrusions on the left-hand side into the 20-foot setback, namely, and one of which is being increased by less than 4 feet, and the other one by 6, and whether those cause a substantial problem here. The objectors seem to have three concerns. The first is that, well, the building's too big. We don't think that building of that size belongs on that lot or in this neighborhood. Size is regulated by the bulk standards in the ordinance. Some towns have a floor area ratio standard to regulate size. Morris Township does not. But it gets regulated in another fashion indirectly. That's by the impervious coverage limit and by the building coverage limit. As to the impervious coverage limit, 45% is allowed in the RA15 zone. The proposal we have comes in at 42.18. With regard to the building coverage, 20% is allowed in this zone. This proposal comes in at 19.94. So how much of this lot is being taken up by this house is not outsized for this zone. It's within the standards that the township has decided to use to regulate the size of the houses. And again, I go back to something that I mentioned before about Mr. Tobia's notes when he was speaking. The height is also compliant. 35 feet, we're at 33.5 for the entire project, not just the new garage and the addition to the existing garage, but for the entire building is measured as 33.5 underneath the maximum. And there's a maximum, I don't know how to describe it exactly, one spot measurement to grade. The maximum is 46.67. In this case, with this building, we're at 40.5. So we're under the height, we're within the coverage limits. All it is that we're a little close to setbacks, the side yard setback variance that this board deals with all the time. And like I said, this is the Board of Adjustment. Where appropriate, this board's function is to consider the proofs and adjust it if you feel it is appropriate. The second concern seems to be, we'll see the building. And that's either because there's a concern over whether on the left-hand side near the cellars an existing row of vegetation will be removed, or because the building will be in the setback. Now, first I want to start by pointing out this is a 15,000 square foot lot zone. It requires 20-foot setbacks. The zone is designed to see houses. In that setting, where you're 20 feet to the sideline from from two houses, you have 40 feet, you're going to see your neighbor. I would say that going any house on this street, you're liable to see maybe half a dozen other houses. There's no right not to see your neighbor, and there's nothing wrong with seeing your neighbor. It's not a detriment to see houses nearby, and I think, to use Mr. Tobia's phrase about world-class architecture, it's certainly not a detriment when you have a house nearby that is of the architectural quality that this house is going to be of, and with the landscaping that is proposed. With regard to the strip of vegetation, first of all, I have to note that it's just a strip of vegetation. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. It's an area that, for all intents and purposes, just hasn't been maintained. I've got to start out by pointing out, too, also, there is no requirement for a strip of vegetation between two adjoining houses. This is not a commercial zone or a commercial use abutting up against a residential use where you require screening by way of a fence or something of that nature, or buffering by way of greenery. These are two residential houses next to each other. Many residential houses, when they come together, it's just a lawn. It's what I have on two sides of my house. The fact that there's vegetation there now doesn't mean it has to stay. You're entitled to do what you want with the vegetation on your property. No easement on a neighbor's property, or no right to claim that certain vegetation be maintained on a neighbor's property just because you like that view or you don't want to see a view. And there's no right to have the view that you have now in the future. As I say, people come in, buy old houses, upgrade their properties all the time. The last concern seems to be a feared effect on property values. You heard the testimony of both appraisers here. I would suggest to you that Mr. Makoff was credible, and that his testimony was more persuasive than that of the objector. He said something that really is just almost common sense, but as an expert, he's entitled to give that opinion, which is essentially rising tide lifts all boats. When you're next to a valuable, expensive house, your value goes up. When you're in the neighborhood and a house that's here about 100 years old, that needs a bunch of work, as Mr. Ewing testified to, and that is going to be made really quite a beautiful house, that helps property values in the neighborhood. It doesn't hurt property values. So I submit to the board that we have met our burden for the granting of all the variances. And before the board retires to consider about that, I wanted to place on the record a couple stipulations in speaking with our client that the board might want to consider, some of which I think we agreed to during the meetings. One, the bedroom above the new garage will not be an apartment. It's designed to be a bedroom associated with this house, but I know it's some concerns voiced, I think, by the neighbors. We'll agree to that. Two, we will revise plans to clean up some of the details. There was some concern about some AC units, I think, that were supposedly shown that weren't there. We'll fix that. I think there was a concern about a proper signature line on one of the sheets. So we'll go through all those small details, of course. Three, we agree to no floodlights over the pool. We're talking low level, low voltage type of lighting around the pool. Four, we are putting in an extensive landscape plan. We'll agree to make sure that we have a 1-year guarantee on the survivability of those plants. Five, I know there's concern expressed by Ms. Sellers and by the tree expert that she brought in about the impact on the larger Norway maple. Our client is willing to stipulate that should that maple die within 2 years after the completion of the project, they'll pay for the replacement of that tree with a tree up to, but not exceeding 6-inch caliber. Lastly, again, going back to that tree issue, I know there was some concern about whether putting in the retaining walls and digging down might impact the roots. We had originally come in with a plan that had a single retaining wall. We changed that to a tiered retaining wall, which allowed for extra planting and also meant that we did not need a variance for the height of the wall. But if there's a concern by the board, if the board believes that the tree could be affected, we agreed that we would do one of two things. One, we would explore whether there's a way, I'm going to use a non-engineering term, to like cantilever that first wall so that we're not digging down so deep to get a footing. That's somehow supported without having to get, do extensive digging in the tree line, or excuse me, drip line. Or two, in the area of the drip line, we'll go back to a singular wall. That, of course, though, would trigger another variance. That was one of the reasons we moved away from that. But if the board was willing to grant the variance and require that we, in that drip line area, go back to a single wall so that there would be less disruption of the roots, my client would be amenable to that.
Okay. Mr. Oler, is there any other
Well,
stipulation?
done, Dave? Thank you.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Both attorneys did a really nice job. I just want to spend a couple minutes just to, as we heard, I'll just outline a few things for the board. There are 4 variances in the case. There's the side yard on the left side at the existing garage for that expansion would go from the 17.7 feet to 14 feet there. Another side yard at the proposed rear addition where the plan labels the carriage/pool house, that's at 14.25 feet. Again, 20 feet is required. The combined side yard would be reduced to 29.44 feet, where it's 33.22 now, and 50 feet is required. And the front yard, and I agree, the front yard is a very de minimis, but it is a small variance. Because it's just a vertical extension over the top of that front of the garage. It's 49.89 feet where 50 is required. So as the board knows, well, let me remind you, it seems like this is a use variance case, but it's not. Right? It's a pretty, I hate to use the word simple, but it's a C bulk variance case, which means that it's a simple majority vote by the board. Okay.
Mr. Oliver, do we have everybody eligible?
Well, Sonia, everyone sitting up here is eligible to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry.
Those up here are eligible. Okay, so I remind the board, and I know you know this, but the applicant has the burden of proof to prove both the positive and the negative criteria for this application. And there's 2 ways they can prove the positive criteria: as a C1 application, which is a hardship application, for things such as the shape or the narrowness of the property, exceptional topography, or some other exceptional situation that's unique to the property, right? Or they can prove it by the C2 criteria, which, as we've heard from Mr. Brady, you prove the C2 by proving that the application would satisfy any of the purposes of zoning, right? And we heard testimony on both sides of that. Also, what's important here is even if the positive is satisfied, the negative criteria also needs to be satisfied. And there's 2 prongs to the negative criteria as well. So a variance can't be granted without a showing that there's no substantial detriment to the public good, i.e. the neighbors or the neighborhood, all right? They also would have to prove that the granting the variance would not substantially impair the zone plan, again, the master plan by that, or the zoning ordinance. Now, if the board were to vote in favor of this application. In addition to the stipulations just mentioned by Mr. Brady, there were a few other conditions. Let me just outline those if there's a vote to approve this. Okay, there would be no elevated lighting at the stair risers. You could only use low voltage lighting at that. I think that was on the right side of the plan. If the wall is taller, and again, we'll discuss if there's a single wall or a double, but if it's taller than 30 inches, I'm sorry, the wall at the stairs, if the wall at the stairs is over 30 inches, it requires a railing. The pool equipment is to be housed within the pool house. We may not vent the pool equipment towards the neighbor. There would be no closets installed within the office. I believe you agreed to omit the generator from the plans. No floodlights shall be permitted, but low voltage foot lighting would be acceptable. No apartment in the rear building, right? Correct the plan to show proper location of the AC pads, maintain and replace the landscape buffer plan, and record a deed notice indicating that the owner must maintain and replace the landscape buffer to my satisfaction and to the township engineers and planners' satisfaction as well. And I know you just said something about a 2-year warranty.
1 year guarantee on the landscape plan.
Yeah, 1 year on the landscaping and 2 years if that large maple dies, right? But I think during the process, we talked about a deed restriction to maintain the
I
landscaping.
think we did, and if we're going to do that, Rich, then I think the prohibition on an apartment in the new garage should go right in that deed restriction, so everybody
Right.
going forward knows.
Right, I'd agree. Okay. And then we also discussed, as you mentioned, Dave, modify the wall at the left side yard to a single wall to preserve the large Norway maple tree. And that redesign would be to the township engineer's satisfaction. Okay, so I think those were the conditions. If there's an approval, and I would just remind the board as you vote to be specific in your rationale on the record as to why you're voting however you vote. Okay, so you have your reasons.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. First of all, I want to thank council, both council, and I also want to thank the members of the public who were very patient, well-behaved, and their input is very important to all of us on the board. And I'm glad you're all showing up. This application, as council has said, is for property located in an R15 zone, which has a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet. Now, the application you heard earlier tonight was in an RA15 and was less than 10,000 square feet. And the existing house was within 7.1 feet of the side yard, and there was no expansion of that encroachment on the side yards. This lot is 20,000 square feet. It's a 100 by 200 lot, which slopes towards the rear of the property as the left rear of the property as one is looking from the street, and has an approximate elevation drop of about 20 feet, if I recall. The initial application had 5 separate improvements. Addition A included the proposed carriage house and pool house consisting of pool equipment, a small kitchenette and bathroom on the ground floor, a 2-car garage, and a bedroom suite on, I'm going to say, the 3rd level. Originally, the building would have been 5 feet from the property line. It was subsequently rotated in its orientation, and instead of being 5 feet, is now set to be 14.25 feet. That's correct. This would be an expansion of the existing dwelling, as the addition would be connected to the proposed rearward expansion of the house that includes the octagonal dining room connected to the first floor of the existing structure, and a sitting room coming out the basement of the existing structure and connecting to the lower floor of the proposed carriage house. So this is not a separate unit. This is one contiguous residence. Although the sloping of the property would allow the roof line in this addition to be in accordance with the height ordinance, the structure at its left rear would appear to be a three-story building to the adjacent landowner because of the sloping. And would, at the rear of the building, the roof would be, I believe the testimony would be 40.5 feet above the ground. That's what I have in my notes, and that's what I pulled out of my notes. Because of the sloping, even though it's in conformity, it would be about 40.5 feet above the ground. It would also appear higher because that sloping of the property means that the adjacent neighbor would be looking up at a structure even perceived to be higher than that 40.5 feet. Addition B would be an extension of the existing garage, which is presently 17.78 feet from the property line and does not have direct access to the house. The proposed improvements would be to expand the garage to within 14 feet of the property line to make it more accommodative to being a two-car garage, and would have a bedroom with a walk-in closet above the garage. And it would be within 14 feet of the property line. The existing garage is also 14.89 feet from the front setback line, so a bulk variance would be required for the expansion of the non-conformity. The addition C is the front portico, which no variance is needed. Addition D was a proposed office off the right of the dwelling that would have been 9 feet from the property line, but that was abandoned, so that's not necessary to comment on. There was also included a pool and covered cabana in the originally submitted plans, which would have triggered a side yard setback, but was amended to meet the 20-foot minimum setback. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So there's no need for a variance as to the pool. With the proposed additions, the left side setback at the garage would be 14 feet, and the setback for addition A would be 14.25 feet. The right yard setback would remain at 15.19, and the combined side yard setbacks would be 29.44. Is that correct?
Yes. I think that's correct. Yep.
Okay.
15.44, yes.
Okay, and originally there was also a variance for the walls, but that was taken out because of the wall and the fence with a transparent cable railing system atop the wall would eliminate the call for that variance. All right. Now, Mr. Tobia listed the variance criteria and reason for granting a variance as a C1 or C2 variance. But while it was in his report, I didn't hear any testimony concerning a C1 variance, and it doesn't seem like there would be any because of the ability of the applicant to propose putting in an addition that would go back towards the steepest part of the property, to the left rear. So I really don't find any kind of C1 variance because of the contours or the shape of the property. C2 variance is where an application for the property would advance the purposes of the Municipal Land Use Act and the deviation and would that the purposes of the Land Use Act would be advanced by a deviation from the zoning ordinance requirements. And the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment the variance should the variance be granted. Mr. Tobia cited several reasons why this proposal meets the goals of the Municipal Land Use Act, including A, appropriate use or development of all lands in a manner that would promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Well, that's a general planning and could really is for an overall plan, not really to promote a specific piece of property. Also along that line is the preservation of the character of the neighborhood and conservation of the neighborhood values are a proper purpose of zoning under the general welfare purpose. I do not believe that the improvements proposed in this application would preserve the character of the neighborhood. In fact, it would completely wreck the character of the neighborhood. It would change everything that neighborhood looks like. Mr. Tobia, it would also, as to Ms. Sellers, would have a great impact on her property, as she would be looking up at this huge addition going up within 5 steps of her property line. Or maybe 6 steps, depends upon how large. He also cited a zoning as C to provide adequate light, air, light, and open space. Well, I think that also is a general zoning proposition and is not really applicable to this application. He also cited, I believe, G. Is that correct, Mr. Tobia?
I think so. We got you.
Yeah, and that's to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses, including agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial. So that is really applied to a general zoning plan overall, to a master plan almost, to provide adequate areas for the use of all these different purposes. Now, it's also L to promote a L or I to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design. Now, this goal entails more than just beautification, which this plan is spectacular. It just, I don't think it's appropriate for this size property or in this location. And since the character of the neighborhood is a promotion of the general welfare, this goal does not apply. M is to encourage coordination of the various public and private procedures shaping land development. This application to expand a residence and use of the property just does not meet the criteria for M. As to the negative effects, as I indicated, I believe it would destroy the character of the neighborhood and have an adverse effect on the enjoyment and use of the neighbor's property. Also, there was testimony about property values and that a rising tide rises all ships. Well, it wouldn't raise Ms. Sellers' property. I don't believe it would raise it as far, because anybody coming in, there'd be many buyers who would look at that structure next door and just say, this isn't what I'm signing on for. I think it would greatly reduce the number of buyers who would even consider this house. So I think that would have a negative effect on the neighborhood. And basically, I would be opposed to approving this application, but I'm welcome to hear comments from other members of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to chime in because this is a very difficult one. And I really want to thank the members of the public for coming in. You really enlighten us. You're there every day. You're not. You know the project, you're the neighbors. Some of your comments don't really relate to what the board can opine on. Whether Mr. Ewing is a good neighbor or a bad neighbor isn't something that we can really rate. One person complained he needs to fix his house. Well, that's what he's here for. He really tried to do a good job of shielding the property from the neighbors. It's beautiful architecture. I think he's done a lot with the walls and with the design of the home. I do think that the garage issue, the front garage, is a valid issue because there's no access from that garage into the house, and to put it into the dining room would not be a modern convenience. So there's a lot of purpose in this application and many applications we see to update and modernize a property for modern usage. That would require a further, a lesser setback into the side yard. That would require what's being proposed here, 24 by 24 rather than 22 by whatever. So that, to me, in my mind, that's sort of a valid purpose. I do share the chairman's concern about the garage in the back. It's huge. My concern, and I thought that Mr. Ursing did a good job of relaying this, because lots of things go back and forth. What is next? The zone wants to respect the privacy and the quality, and as the chairman said, the character of the neighborhood. And when I think about not so much the front garage, but the rear garage and what could be next, and it's true, there's lots of room in the back where things could be placed. Even that one garage, you don't need, I don't think you need to have the 4 feet going toward the dining room. Maybe that could be shifted over. That would only be 4 feet rather than 6. But so I am concerned about the zone concerns, because it's a big visual, obstacle, maybe it's the wrong word, to the neighborhood looking at that huge thing. So I have that concern too, and I don't know what can be done about it at this point. I'm sure something can be done about it, but I'm leaning toward respecting the zone plan, which is there for the reason of maintaining the privacy and maintaining the character of the neighborhood. Yes, this is an old neighborhood. I don't have that much concern about the neighborhoods changing, because every neighborhood changes, especially over 85 or 90 years. That in itself doesn't sway me that much, because it would be a normal process of changing the character of a neighborhood somewhat over the years. This looks like a very sudden and sharp and potentially long-term change that could really damage the character. I'd be afraid of it continuing on to the next house and the next house and the next house. I think Mr. Ursing's characteristic of the planning, of the architectural work that was done, says a lot, which is, yeah, we all want to design our homes to what our needs are. We all want to design our homes to what our homes are. But at some point you have to say, well, what does the zone require? What does the zone look for? What is it that the zone says, because that should be restricting what it is, or at least limiting what it is that I'm going to do. And if I can't, then I'm going to have to go to the zoning board, which we see a lot of projects come to us because there really isn't a lot that they can do without doing what it is they're proposing to do. In this case, we're not worrying about the zone. We'll go to the zoning board and see what happens. And I think that was a spot on observation by the architectural work that was done. So I appreciate that insight. I guess that's all I have for now.
Any other board members with comments? None? So
I'll go.
Okay.
So I always think of two elements when I'm addressing any items that come before this board. One, how flexible can we be with the existing rules provided, and whether or not I would want this built next to my house. Starting with the second one, I would love this built next to my house, because I know the value of my house would go up substantially. How flexible we can be, I'm okay with everything except for that carriage house. Because of the slope, you're talking about a 3-story structure that's overlooking the neighbor. I don't think there's enough space between the property line and that structure in order to adequately shield that structure from the neighbor, given the size of that structure and how big the trees would have to be. I just don't think there's enough room for the roots to grow to make those trees high enough to make it palatable. If there's a way to shrink that, if there's a way to move it over a little, I would absolutely consider it. But that's the reason why I would probably vote no on this.
Any other board members with comments? Okay. No more members, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before you take the motion, having heard some of the concerns of the board, can I have 5 minutes to have a discussion with my client?
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Should we stay on the record? 5-minute recess. We're back on the record. Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit,
Here.
Mr. Kramer.
Here.
Ms. Simmons. Here. Ms. Fulara. Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Mr. Oler.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
And I'm Sonia Santiago here.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for accommodating me for a chance to consult with my client. I mean, what we're hearing tonight from every member of the board that's spoken is that while the existing garage and the expansion of that to make it functional is somewhat understandable, the new garage in the rear of the property is a significant problem. We've changed our plans before in response to comments from the board and the public. And what we would ask is that we have a chance, give us 30 days to decide whether we want to change them again. I would not like to have to reapply again, have res judicata issue, have a renotice issue, et cetera. Rather go back and take a look at this. I hear what everybody has said about you have some significant open space behind this house. Maybe there's a way to design, to revise this design, to either get that new garage closer or at the 20 feet, or perhaps because I heard a lot of members talk about the height because of the slope that gives way there, to deal somehow with the height of it. The request that the board give us that opportunity to come back, submit revised plans before, I guess, the board meeting at the end of April. I think somebody was saying April 28th or something like that.
Yeah, except I'm not going to be at the April meeting, and
And you don't
I
want to
may
burden
not,
someone?
not with this one, and I may not be at the May meeting because as you know, Dave, we normally meet on the fourth Monday. In
Right.
May, we're meeting on the third Monday, and it's going to impact scheduling, I think. So I may not be here in May
Okay.
either. So that might push you to June if the board's agreeable to
Well,
what.
frankly, I was concerned about whether we could accomplish the redesign in 30 days.
Right.
I would suggest that we put it on, I'd like to pick the May meet or the April meeting, and then as it comes up, address what we're going to do with it. I don't want to have to renotice if possible. We can just announce it at the meeting. We end up either May or maybe even possibly June. It gives us a little more time to play with this. This is not cookie cutter. It's custom designing here with this house. So a little more time, I don't think is particularly egregious. We've gone this long.
Yeah, listen, let's hear what the board thinks about
Sure.
putting that off. And I think that if that's an agreement, we probably would have to push it to June. I think I need to be here for it.
That's fine.
And I want to hear what Mr. Urson is going to say right
That's
now. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Aller. Mr. Chairman, we would strongly request that the board either vote or this applicant withdraw the application. To simply stand up and say, after all this time, that now we've finally heard what the neighbors have said, now we finally realize the mistake we've made, now we realize how far we pushed it on you closed testimony, you had summations, you deliberated among the board. These neighbors have been attending This application was filed somewhere near the end of December of '23. Our first meeting here was in December of '23. To simply say that we're going to drag this out at the neighbor's expense, at the inconvenience to their time, because this applicant in a year and a half didn't hear what the neighbors were saying or see the writing on the wall, and now is coming forward and suggesting compromise and an amendment of the plan, the inconvenience should be to the applicant, not to the neighbors. There should be withdrawal, or there should be no more talking. The board should deliberate, and there should be a vote.
So I don't see how that's an inconvenience to the neighbors, but I want to hear what the board has to say for sure.
I agree.
And-
Either way, they're going to have to come back.
Yeah, and I do think that the board has a lot of leeway in terms of, reopening testimony if they wanted to, based on what
Halfway through a vote,
just
anytime?
represented.
And two votes against, and we're just going to reopen testimony and
Well, we
start
haven't
over?
voted. There hasn't even been a motion,
There hasn't been a motion yet.
Right.
Right.
Call for a motion.
but there's been deliberation only. So there has been no motion made, right?
Yeah, I understand what Mr. Brady's saying is that, he wants the time to revise the whole plan, but then we'd be like starting from scratch again, essentially.
Only back though.
Well, it's gotta, I think if you're, we're not gonna vote on one particular part, we're gonna do the whole thing at
I
once.
agree. But in terms of something different for the board to look at, it's going to be that.
I know, but then we're gonna have engineers, we're gonna have architects, we're gonna have a different landscape plan, we're gonna have different testimony from professional planners. The objectors are still gonna have to probably bring in expert witnesses. So I'm sort of leaning towards I know what Mr. Oler's saying, I take that into account, but I would be leaning towards either withdrawing it or let us vote on it. I don't know what the other board members think.
Well, I'll just comment in one area. What we're voting on, if we vote now, is not what came before us in 2023.
Right.
This has been heavily amended. It's not that adjustments haven't been made before. Okay, and some of that was put in a bad light during some of the summations that, it was said to be this, and then I think all of it was wanted, and then adjustments were made in accordance with how the hearings went. It's gonna we're gonna end up hearing a lot of landscaping, et cetera, are gonna have to be modified, but I don't know that we should treat this as a new application.
Okay.
I think, I guess that's my view. This won't be a new application. I don't think we should treat it as such.
Any other comments?
I tend to agree with Mr. Kramer.
So do I. And then there's also a risk that it could pass.
That's right.
That's true.
I did get the feeling there were some yes votes on this application right now, so I don't know where, there was a lot of silence on that part.
Okay,
I don't know.
so I guess, sort of just the.
So can you just clarify what Mr. Kramer is actually proposing?
I'm proposing that we do exactly what was asked.
So you're proposing that we give the applicant time to amend the plan and come back and present an amended plan?
Well, I think what they're saying right now is they'd like 30 days or so to come back and tell us if they want to amend the plan. Is that correct?
Is that correct?
That would be my preference, actually, Mr. Kramer, because I'm not sure we can get revisions done in 30 days. I kind of like that Mr. Aller isn't available for a little while.
Well, that's why I think we should just, if that's the board's preference here, to give you that opportunity to amend the plan, I would push it out to June. I would just go to June. I mean, why are we messing around? I know it's not going to be heard in April.
I could certainly, along Mr. Kramer's line, we could give you an indication, I think, by the April meeting, are we amending or are we either going to withdraw or let the board vote?
You could withdraw at any time, right? But I will say this, if an applicant requests to withdraw an application, the board has to consent to the withdrawal. You don't have to let them withdraw it, okay? That's a discussion if the day comes, but I would just say, if the board's preference is to give you time to amend or withdraw, we should just schedule it for June. You can withdraw at any point before that, or send us a letter to withdraw, and the board can schedule that maybe sooner to have that discussion,
Okay.
but it'll probably be in June, frankly.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Sorry, but I'm definitely not here in April, and I'm this way about May right now. So,
June would be fine.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not clear on one thing. If they agree that they want to amend the application, do something with the rear building, do we listen to testimony only in regard to that? Or do we need to listen to testimony about the rest of the property?
To the extent, I guess, that it impacts the rest of the, property.
The extent to which it may impact, okay.
That'd be
yeah,
my
we don't
feeling.
even know what that change is.
Right.
But, I mean, if they changed it so everything was compliant in the rear, then the only thing would be the front garage.
Right.
And you'd hear some testimony on the front garage, right?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So how do we proceed on this? Just voice
So is
vote?
that the board? Yeah, voice vote.
Are we going to say it? So if you want a motion, I move that we carry it as discussed
To June,
to June
Whatever.
meeting.
Second.
Okay. Who seconded?
I did.
Mr. Schuster.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can we know the date?
yeah, I'm looking it up, sorry. June 23rd.
What if we can't be here? We might be moving our daughter into the Air Force Academy. So I can't change that date. You know, then, I mean, we are directly impacted.
Well, you can do it in May. I may be here, I don't really know.
I'm
June 1st.
okay for you.
Are you okay? If it was in May, would you be okay for May?
May what?
May 19th.
19th.
Right, Mr. Aller's not going to be here.
There's a possibility.
There's a possibility.
You know what, if we put it on for that day and it's possible and we can do it, that's great. If it becomes impossible, we deal with it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a motion to carry it until June to let the applicant decide whether they want to withdraw, go to a vote, or modify.
Go to June or May, Mr. Chairman?
Are we going to do?
Motion is for June.
Motion's for June. Do we want it June or May?
I'd suggest May, because as I said, if Mr. All is available, great. If not,
We'll put it off.
we'll deal with that then. Yeah, we can
So
always-
Yeah, I just don't know the answer to that right now. So why don't we go to May 19th with no further notice, and we can change it at the May 19th meeting to some future meeting.
And just to clarify, one of the potential outcomes is the applicant come back and say, we're leaving the plan as we're ready to go to.
That is, they'll just say, okay, we're ready to go to a vote, or we have a new plan and we want to present testimony on some revisions, or we withdraw. And then we'll have a discussion about what the withdrawal would be.
Okay. So that's the present motion.
Mr. Kramer needs to amend his motion.
Amend the motion to May instead of June.
May 19th.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so
No.
So for the public, this matter is being carried to May 19th at 7 o'clock in this room with no further notice from the applicant.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one other matter we're going to discuss. That is BA-18-22. Maria and Timothy Clifford. You've seen their letter. They want an extension of time for another year. Mr. Oler, can you tell us?
Yes. 1 second. Okay, so this was an application by the Cliffords, which which was originally approved by the board on May 27th of 2023. Properties at 222 West Hanover Avenue is an addition for a partial second story to serve as an in-law suite. It maintained the existing side yard, and there was some impact to the front yard for some new stairway that was involved. And they're asking for an extension. They didn't really ask for how long. One of the in-laws passed away, so they're rethinking maybe some of what they need to do or how to do it and when to do it. So I would suggest we just give them a one-year extension that would bring them out to March of 26.
March of 26.
I'm okay.
Okay? March 26, and there's been no changes in the zone, really no modifications in the neighborhood. It'd be the same application anyway.
Is that a motion?
So,
Yes.
yes, so is your okay a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? We have to roll call. Aye.
Okay.
You guys say aye.
Extend it for 1 year.
Okay, anything else? Controller?
Was there anything else?
No?
Okay, April's meeting is still the regular meeting date? Question mark?
Question mark.
It's the 28th, I'm not going to be here.
That's
21st, I'll be here.
Okay,
Same for me, by the way.
all right.
And we don't know if that would work because we're waiting for to know the planning board schedule. Right now, there's nothing on the planning board for that day, which would free up the room.
Right.
Is that right?
Can everybody make it on the?
Yeah, that we need board members more than you need.
Well, I would have been at the planning board, so I guess I can be here.
I don't think I'm in town on the 21st.
It's April 21st, April 21st, right?
Yeah, I'm not here.
How come I have the same seat, both boards?
It's the view.
That's right.
It's the view.
It's the view.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
view. So Sonia, are there?
Is everybody else, anybody else have a problem?
You're
No
good?
problem, no problem?
Are there applications
No
on that day?
For April
21st
21st for
For here,
for
for
here?
the board? Yeah.
Well, I have two right now. Let me see. Hold on.
Or the 28th?
We usually need a
Yeah.
meeting. But then,
I haven't given them notice, so
Okay.
if I'm gonna remove them to the 21st, I have to send notice like quick.
right.
Well, that's, I'm gonna ask you a question about.
Does it matter that he's been the
Well,
engineer on this project?
and then that Wilson would have to be
I
noticed,
don't think
right?
it matters. I
Yeah.
think they just need an engineer.
Right.
Okay, so I have two. One is an in-ground pool and an addition. And Wilson that we carried.
So.
That was 3 applications.
All right, so just if we move the meeting to the 21st, now we're going to require that guy to renotice his application. Or just keep it on the 28th. Sorry. I feel like I'm causing that problem.
Keep it on the 20.
Keep it
Yeah,
on
keep it on
28th.
the 28th, right? It seems unfair to make him renotice.
Right,
when
right,
we
right.
really have to. Okay.
But Rich, I just have a resource question, like for the May meeting, if we hear the revised application or whatever
Yeah.
is coming from, Dave won't be here, like the township has to provide a engineering resource to be in attendance or,
There'll be somebody here at the end of this week.
oh, there will be. Okay, all right, good.
So
And he
we-
has
we-
already been told he's going to take care of the boards.
Oh,
both,
oh, okay.
Is he okay with
Look forward to
that?
meeting him.
Yeah.
And this is an in-house
No,
consultant?
consult,
Who is it?
Joe Vooch.
Oh, not Joe.
Oh, not the.
No, yeah. He works for,
That guy?
he works for Van Cleef Engineering,
Okay.
and he currently has like 3 other towns that he's responsible for. He did apply here for the in-house position. Town couldn't come to a conclusion with his salary, then he must have got a talking to at work. And now he doesn't want to leave his other job, but they're willing to pick him up, or they're willing to give him this town as a consulting engineer.
Okay.
So we currently have a lot of projects going on with Van Cleef in the design phases, so continuity stays there at least. He knows a lot of people in the office already, so.
Does that present any kind of conflict when he's dealing with his own firm?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it's Van Cleef that would be appointed.
Yeah.
Him, but part of Van Cleef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's good. He's good. I dealt with him up in Stillwater. That's one of his towns. I dealt with him up in Stillwater. He's good.
It's been a long time since I've been in Stillwater.
I had an application in Stillwater. Wasn't sure I was going to find my way out.
It's easier during the daytime.
It sure is.
It was pretty dark.
So
Yes.
right now we have Ewing for the 19th.
Ewing for
May?
the 19th
Of May, yeah.
of May.
Okay, of May, okay.
I may just come back and sit in the audience.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And 3
nothing
for
better to do,
April
huh?
28th
popcorn.
meeting. So we keep him April 28th meeting,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
And there's going to be 3 things on?
3 things.
Okay.
Okay.
Steve will cover for me or somebody from his firm?
Okay, I'm gonna close this one just in case. I'll close that one.
All right. So I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is that a second? All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.